askreddit. What is the most effective psychological trick you use? Doing something or avoiding by just doing the smallest possible step, like washing one plate. It cracks the procrastination paralysis and you usually end up doing the whole thing anyway. This works for exercise, too. Commit to 5 minutes and you'll usually stay in motion. And even if you only do 5 minutes, it's better than 0. I think it's called the hairy arms trick. When I'm about to hand in the first version of a piece of work, I will leave a small but noticeable error that's easy to fix. It's always the error that my boss notices and suggests changing, which means that he or she feels involved in the process but also doesn't nitpick for something arbitrary to criticize. I wish I knew about this trick when I had to write short medical segments for the local news. If I showed my editor something that I felt was perfect, he would make me move sentences around for an hour and end up almost exactly where we started. Predictability means safe. I'm a school teacher with a high number of students with trauma. Major issues while getting my routines established, but they're now super warm to me because I'm reliably predictable. I have 2 outfits that I alternate, a Mon/Wed/Free and a Tuesday, Thursday same greeting at the start of class, same start to every class etc. Have very transparent discipline too. They know exactly what gets a detention and what doesn't. If they can predict what will happen, they feel safe because they're in control of choosing their outcome for the day. Children, and people, like feeling in control. Recently, my fiancé's cousin told us about how she doesn't give her children the option of whether or not to have veggies. She gives them the option of how much they get. Usually something like, would you like 1 helping of green beans, or 2? Of course, they happily choose 1, sometimes 2. Weird kids, haha, and they do it with a big smile on their face like they just got away with something lol. I'm a nurse and I use this for patients all the time. Confused patients or patients who tend to refuse treatments, especially uncomfortable ones like laxatives or suppositories, therapy, etc. It gives them 2 options, not an opportunity to decline. Do you want your Miralax with water or juice? Do you want me to do the suppository now or after lunch? Would you like the therapist to get you out of bed to the chair, or would you like to get up to the chair now and the therapist can get you back to bed? If they can do it, I can do it. Almost every single job, position, title or accomplishment has been achieved by someone that other people look at and go, how the freak did that person make it to where he is? And if those people can do it, I sure can do it as well. I did this with myself when I was learning to drive. Same, I thought, if that dumbass girl from my class can drive, there's no way I'm not doing this. Talk softer so people either de-escalate or pay more attention. There is a 16-year age gap between myself and my youngest sister. When she got to the tantrum age, I would sit near her and start talking quietly. If she wanted to hear me, she had to stop throwing a tantrum. Saved my teenaged sanity. This works so well. I used to have a huge anger problem and would instantly yell at my siblings or parents if they upset me and actually caused a lot of fights between my BF and I because I got mad so easily. My BF has autism and so my anger or yelling never ever helped, and one day I finally just snapped out of it and did a lot of research on autism and how to approach someone who is having an episode, and talking softer is definitely the way to go. Now when my BF gets upset, then I'll talk in a softer voice, and if he's having trouble telling me what's wrong, then instead of getting mad, I take a breath and put myself entirely there for him, because when someone is upset, no matter who they are, they just want support and to be told that someone is there for them and listening, not yelling or accusing them for not opening up or coming to them sooner. Kindness and patience really does go a long way, and more people need to learn it. This works every time. I honestly started doing it after watching Meryl Streep in The Devil Wears Prada. You can obliterate people without raising your voice. And the effect is much more significant because there is no aggression in tone or body language. Just words. Words spoken softly but with brutal straightforwardness. That's actually why Meryl Streep decided to use that voice for that character. She thought it made her seem more powerful if she used a low, softer voice rather than screaming and shrieking like a harpy. The human brain can usually differentiate between a fake polite smile and a genuine one. So I just put myself in my golden retriever's mind when meeting new people, and I can feel my face light up like, oh boy, a new person. Friend. I've gotten better service at places and free stuff. You can remind yourself to do any task by leaving a random object in the middle of the floor on your way out of the room. When you come back in, you'll see the object and remember why you left it there. Works every time. I tried this. I just ended up going, oh great, I need to do that, while stepping over the object and procrastinating. 2 weeks later it's just a massive pile of stuff you have to climb over to get into your room. Fake it till you make it can really trick yourself into doing something you didn't want to do. For example, I really don't feel like starting on my report. Let me just pretend that I'm interested in doing it. Look over the data and act like I was getting any information out of them. And then next thing I know I was balls deep into my report. Ben Franklin effect: if someone doesn't like you, convince them to do you a favor or lend you something. It'll trick their subconscious into convincing them they like you. Very handy at work. I'm a salesman who is afraid to call. Really, it is like a phobia. In my job you mostly hear a no than a yes, and it makes me feel down. So recently I ran into this technique when you have to take a no for your goal. Each morning I write 70 circles. Each time I hear no I color it, and this shit just works. Somehow your brain rewards yourself for a no and you don't feel like shit. Also, I never sounded so confident. I'm not afraid to offer anything. I want this no. My results have never been this great so far. I want to use this method in regular life also. Silence. It's so powerful. If I want to find out more about what someone is really thinking or feeling, instead of nodding along or using some verbal filler, I just don't say or do anything. It's amazing how people respond. So often as people we interrupt each other before things reach a deeper level. Plus, some people find silence uncomfortable and need to fill it. I found out so much this way. At work, when I know something is not working due to a mistake that someone else has made, I ask them if I've done something wrong or if I understand the process correctly. I find more people are willing to own up to something and fix it quickly if they are not made to feel defensive with direct accusations. I don't know if it's effective yet, but I'll try to make myself believe that my due dates for college assignments are one day before so I can pressure me and finish them on time. That's kind of like how I've got all the clocks set to about 15 minutes ahead so I get to work on time. I actually didn't know how many minutes forward I set it, did it without looking. After a while, I noticed I had started subconsciously adjusting for it and that it stopped working. The best way to get a question answered is to just guess at the answer. If you are wrong, people will fall all over themselves to correct you. This is called Moore's Law. I prefer using Cole's Law in those scenarios. I love Cole's Law, especially using it at summer barbecues. After I woke up, I opened the fridge to eat my ice cream, but it has been eaten. I immediately knew it was my brother. If I asked him, "Did you eat my ice cream?" I'm sure he gonna deny lol, but what I did is, I told him I bought you an ice cream, go eat it. Then he immediately said I already eat it. And you know what happened to him after? One of the best ways to diffuse a conflict while also getting what you want from a person is to compliment them, telling them that they are the qualities you want them to start being in that moment, and then they will usually begin to start acting like it all. The idea of a compliment throws them off and makes them want to listen more, and then the things you said which they are not will bother their ego, and they will usually try to start acting like the way you complimented them for being, because to not do so would prove you wrong and they would feel foolish. You can literally trick their own ego against them. This is also a great way to make enemies like you more. I've made enemies into friends using this trick. This is a slippery slope. I had a coworker who I'm in conflict with try to patronize me by offering a generic compliment amidst trying to take work from me, and it smelled of ego stroking. This method doesn't work on people who are actively trying to minimize their ego, but I see how it could work on others. If you're going to do it with manipulation in mind, beware you're furthering moral conflict. If you're doing it to genuinely change your own perspective on the person with no expectation of change in outcome or trying to change them, it can actually be effective at bringing peace into the situation. Whenever I feel myself getting overwhelmed, I picture myself taking problems and putting them in a box. Then later that night I come back to the box and deal with the problems then. Just throw the box out each night. Or bury it deep inside. When someone is upset, repeat back what they said. It helps them to hear what their words sounded like and isn't judgmental. Also, it makes you use their language instead of interjecting words they might associate with a different meaning or connotation, which leads to misunderstanding or defensive behavior. I learned this when I was in college and needed to diffuse lots of conflicts, while still staying neutral. For example, my roommate sucks and I want to move rooms. So what you're saying is that you two don't get along? No, that's not it. He's just gross and doesn't wash his clothes. It sounds like you have a problem with his habits, more than his personality. Yeah. I mean, who wears the same pair of underwear every day? Based on what you've said, if he washed his clothes regularly you wouldn't have a problem living with him? Well, no. Then let's go talk to him and see what we can do to make you both comfortable living together. Etc. Essentially, it keeps you neutral to both parties, doesn't implicate you at all, helps you understand the root of the problem and therefore work on a solution. I had this exact situation happen a lot. However, some RAs would agree and say the other roommate was gross, which made that resident feel uncomfortable, or they would tell the one complaining to not be rude and suck it up, which would make that roommate feel bad. It was a lot of word puzzling to try and stay neutral when often you just wanted to shake one of them and say, "You are a problem." But unfortunately, that usually doesn't help situations. This also works great when you have someone going through mental health difficulties and don't know how to help them. I also had these conversations a lot as an RA, and even now as a teacher. I'm tired all the time and I can't eat or sleep well. It sounds like you aren't feeling well. Notice it doesn't say depressed. You never want to diagnose someone, because you don't know what meaning they attach to that word. Yeah, but I'm not sick. I've just felt down for months. That sounds like you are struggling through a lot. I am. I don't know what to do. What I'm hearing is you need some resources to help you. Here, let me walk you to the counselor. They have some great resources that help people who feel they are struggling. Now they aren't always short or clear-cut situations, and sometimes people do need a good shoulder shake, but this helps you to stay calm and neutral during conflicts. When I was younger and I wanted to get pizza, I was whispering pizza and showing my father a meme with pizza in it. Sometime later my dad has this genius idea to order pizza lol. Just think, those Inception folks tried so hard, when all along the secret was memes.